Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, NexTutorial. And in today's video, I'm doing something a little bit different. We are going to try to fix the red light of death on a PlayStation 3. This is the backward capable model. Now, as you see, when I try to turn it on, it's going to blink 3 times, then it goes back to red, and it's going to make this noise. That's how you would know that it needs to be fixed. As it's shown right here, that's what it does. I'm going to walk you through the steps. I've done some research and I've came across a couple things that we can do, and I'm going to show you the steps on how to get it done. Now, this one is the backward capable. Now, backward capable has this slot right here where you can put some memory cards in, and it does have 4 ports on the front. That's how you know that it is a backward capable, and it does have the chrome look. Let's go ahead and start deassembling this system. First thing, we are going to remove the hard drive. You want to unscrew this blue screw. Then we're going to slide the hard drive, then start taking apart this PlayStation. Now, once you remove this, we can go ahead and start removing the top plate. Very next step, right here, usually there is a sticker. You can remove it. There's a rubber piece. You have to remove it. Then there's a special screw. You would have to remove the screw that is located right here. On my system, that the hinge is broken, so I'm just going to remove the top and slide it off, then start deassembling the system and taking off the screws. I'm just going to fast forward this process. If you need to pause, feel free to do so. Make sure to remember where all the screws are. There are certain ones are different sizes, so you want to make sure you put them in the right place back where they were. This part, once you are done, it will open up toward you. So you want to open it slowly to make sure there's nothing gets ripped. Then you want to make sure to disconnect the wires. Use plastic, don't use anything metal, because you don't want to do anything to the motherboard. So plastic would be more better, and you want to do it gently. So you want to open up the plastic piece and kind of take off the wiring. Make sure to put everything aside, and you're going to need to put it back the way it was once we are done. After you disconnect all the wires, we're going to be removing the disk drive. So you want to gently remove everything, and once you are done, it will open up toward like the side. Then you want to do it gently and open up that with the plastic and pull out the cord. Now right here, we're going to deassemble and remove the power supply. So it's going to be the same steps. Just take the screws, put them in a spot where you're going to remember where they should go back to. Then we're just going to set it aside and disconnect it from the board. Same thing right here. You want to take out the screws. Now what we're doing is we are going to try to take the motherboard off from the bottom piece of the PlayStation 3. Same thing, you want to make sure to set everything aside, and you don't want to lose any screws. Now this is my first time doing this, to be honest with you, so I'm taking my time. If you want to be patient with me, and we can try to do it together. Those are two tiny screws. You want to remove those. Remember to put them back where they are. We're going to detach the board slowly from the bottom plastic piece from the PlayStation. One thing I forgot to mention here is you want to disconnect the power supply. I forgot to do it on the video. As you see, there is so you can maneuver the board better. Now you want to try to remove this plastic piece on the back slowly. Then we're going to deassemble this metal plate away from the motherboard so we can take apart the other pieces. So once you take this off, you want to flip the motherboard to the opposite side so we can take out the fan and the other parts on the other side. Make sure when you remove the cords, you don't wanna bend them, and you wanna make sure that we put everything back the way it was. Now we want to remove the battery. You want to be very gentle trying to remove it. It looks like I'm having a hard time removing it right now, so we'll just skip it and come back to it later. Let's deassemble the fan and we'll go back to the battery. Right here there are two screws on the top right. They're very tiny, so you want to make sure you remove those and put them aside. You don't want to lose them. Then we're going to be able to remove this back off this where like it links to the chips. It's going to have like thermal paste on it, and where it cools the CPU and GPU on the system. Now we're going to remove, you want to bend this piece right here a little bit so we can slide this metal piece away from the motherboard, so we can go ahead and work on the motherboard and clean it and use some heat to fix it. So once you remove this, and I'll show you what to do next. As you look at the chips, the CPU and GPU, the thermal paste is dry, and we're going to be scraping that gently so we can replace the thermal paste. And I'm going to be using the MX4. I looked for the MX2, I couldn't find any, so I got the MX4. It should work the same. So we're just going to scrape that a little bit. Then once we are done, we're gonna try to clean it off with rubbing alcohol. Now going to this part, we have to do the same thing. As you see, the thermal paste is so dry, and that could be one of the cause for the PlayStation to overheat, and where it makes it shuts off. So we're gonna scrape this, same thing, clean it off with rubbing alcohol really good Then we're gonna apply the new thermal paste on the chips after we do one step, and I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do. So let's scrape this, clean it, and move to the next part. Now moving back to the motherboard, I've seen some, seems like we're kind of like a liquid damage. We're gonna try to clean this off with Q-tips and rubbing alcohol. We're gonna clean it very gently, so we want to be very careful not to mess anything up. And we're gonna do this on different areas on the motherboard where I've noticed some liquid damage, just in case, so we can make sure that everything is clean, and it should help us in fixing this. Now moving to the next part, we're gonna heat these with a heat gun. I put this attachment so we can focus the heat on certain areas. So we're gonna do this. You don't want to stay in one spot, so you want to kind of do it around to make sure if there's something not attached, to reattach it with that heat. Now we're going to do this side, then we're going to flip the motherboard and do the other side in certain areas. Once you are done with that process, the chips are going to be extremely hot. So we're going to flip it to the other side, and we're going to do some other chips, which is these 4. Then we're going to do the opposite side of the CPU and GPU. So we're going to do the same thing with a heat gun. Same thing, but you don't want to focus for too long over there, because you don't want anything to melt or melt the motherboard either. So we're going to be not focused on one area. You kind of go around, go to the other areas, and so forth, so on, and we can get this done quickly. Take your time, no rush. If you need to pause this video, make sure to do so you can do the steps carefully. Once the motherboard is cooled off, it takes about up 15 minutes. You can use a blow dryer just to kind of cool it. We're going to be using the MX4 thermal paste, and you want to spread it with that plastic, something similar to this. So you want to spread it all from corner to corner, and try to make it even all around both chips. Once we are done, this is the part where we're going to reassemble everything back in. So we're going to get this piece where we deassembled it before. We're going to attach the motherboard to it, and it's basically is going to realign with the other coolant piece. Bend this back, then you want to make sure everything is aligned. Then we're going to start putting back the screws. Follow the steps slowly. If you need to pause it, same thing, make sure to do so. And we're gonna put this PlayStation back in the way it was, then we're gonna test it. Don't forget to make sure the battery is attached and put back in place. Then we're gonna install the fan back and make sure the cable is connected as well. So this is gonna have 3 screws. Then once you put those screws, you want to connect the ribbon cable, the cable where it's supposed to. We don't want to miss that and forget to connect it. Now we're going to flip the motherboard, then put the other steel plate on top. Make sure everything is aligned so we can move to the next step where we reattach the power supply and the plastic piece that goes back. Then we're gonna put this piece back on. I noticed that I didn't need to remove it. After I did, you can just put it back on. When you're deassembling the PlayStation, you can just keep that on that plate. You don't need to remove it like I did. So we're just gonna put this back on and move on to put in the back plastic and the power supply. We're gonna put this plastic piece back in place. It's easier if you remove the power supply to maneuver. I forgot to do that, so I'm just gonna go ahead and remove the power supply, like disconnect it with that cable, then clamp that plastic piece back in. Then we're gonna slide this back in the bottom piece of the PlayStation 3. Once we put that back in place, we're gonna start putting back the screws all around. We're gonna put these steel plates. These will hold the motherboard and everything in place. And after we do the center ones, we're gonna put all the screws around to mount and secure the motherboard back in place and connect it to the bottom piece of the PlayStation. Don't forget, that's where the 2 small screws goes. You don't want to put any longer ones. You don't want to mess up anything. There's going to be a medium screw right here, long screw, not the longest one, to go on that corner. And then we're going to connect the ground cable, and that's where it goes. Then right here, we're going to try to start to reconnect all the wires and all the attachments. So we put this back gently, make sure it's secured, then we set it back in place and screw it back to the frame. Our 2 screws I put by accident. I'm going to remove them, then I'm going to put them back on to secure that power button and eject button back in place. So as you see in the video, I'm just gonna remove those 2 screws, then put it back in place, then screw it. Our next step is to connect the disk drive to the motherboard. You want to do this gently. You don't want to break that plastic piece. I almost did, so we're just going to connect it gently, then continue. Once you secure it back in place, we're gonna connect the cable back to the motherboard the same way it was, and there is a way where you can connect these cords to the front of the console. I did it I did it on the side, but that was a mistake. Later on, as you're gonna see on the video, I'm gonna move it back to where it's supposed to, toward the front. You don't want it to be squeezed on the side. Right here, we're going to connect the power supply. You want to make sure you put it the right way. Take your time, no rush. Like I said, we're fixing it together. This is my first time, so be patient with me, and if you need to pause the video, do so. As you see right here, what I mentioned earlier, you want to move it toward the front of the console, the cords. You don't want them tangled on the side between the power supply and the disk drive. So now we're gonna move this toward the front. We're gonna secure it with that small piece of tape on the side of the power supply. You don't want it just be underneath. So we'll move this, then we're gonna connect the other piece back in. Once we have this piece right here, you want to put that ribbon cable very gently, then the plastic piece, make sure you do it right, because we don't want to put it the opposite way. So you slide it in, then you close that black piece on the back, to make sure it's secure, the cord in. Then that black cable, small cable, you want to attach it right there, and you're gonna hear it click. Once you do that, you're gonna connect the other piece back to the motherboard on the bottom. Take your time. Let's do this. Now right here, we're going to use the screws to secure everything in place after we connected all the parts. So you wanna, like I said, remember where the screws goes. On the front piece right here, it's gonna have 4 different small screws, 2 on each side. Once we are done, we're gonna connect the power supply, then the disk drive. It will connect, it will stay in place once we put the top plastic piece to secure it. Right here, we're going to use this cord. We're going to connect it back where it was. Then we're going to slide the top piece back in place. Then we put the screws on top to finish up our assembly. Now this part, just like the way we opened it toward us. I tried to do it the other way. I forgot when I deassembled the console. So we're gonna move it toward me or you, like while you're repairing it. Then we're gonna slide it backwards. Once it sits in place, we're gonna put all the screws back the way it was. Those 2 where I'm started is gonna be the small screws. So 1 over there and 1 on the left side. Then the rest of the screws are going to be the large, except the one on the top right corner is gonna be the smallest long screw. And it will have like an S symbol next to it, so you won't put a long screw by accident. you are done assembling everything, make sure to put the top plate, and don't forget to put the hard drive back and screw the blue screw to hold it in place. Once we are done right here, we are going to test it and hopefully it will work for us. So let's go ahead and test it. We're gonna turn it on right now. So far so good. It looks like it's working. It worked out for me, and I've seen it worked for a lot of people, and we're gonna test it with a game and hopefully it will work. As you see, it's still on. I turned it off, then I'm gonna try it one more time just to make sure it stays on, because I've seen other videos and other people where after they're doing all this, it stopped working. One reason it could be is if you don't put enough thermal paste, maybe, I'm assuming, but it looks like it worked for me and for other people, same method. We're gonna test it with a game, Metal Gear Solid 4, and it is taking the CD, and it worked very well for us. So I hope this video was very helpful to you guys, and I'm just sharing the knowledge to help you out fixing your PlayStation. In some other cases it did not work for other people. It worked out for me, and I hope this video will be helpful to you. If you do think this helped you out in any way, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. It will help me a lot, and thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.